Okay, so this is lesson 1.2. So we're going to call this lesson 1.2. This is distance and midpoint. So in geometry, we're going to need to measure some things. Another word for measure is distance, right? If I said find the measure between myself and the chalkboard, you're going to get a ruler out or a yardstick and you're going to measure how far that distance is, okay? So we have a distance formula that we're going to use. It looks a little bit scary, but it's really not too bad to use. So we're going to use a lowercase d to represent distance. And then we have a big long square root. Make a big long square root. And then we're going to put x1. This is not x to the first power. This is not an exponent. It's a subscript, which means it's down low, not up high. This just means the first x that you have. Minus x2. That just means the second x that you have. Whatever that is, we're going to square it. Plus y1 minus y2. And then we're going to square that. Now again, that seems like it's a lot. It's not. You just have to make sure you're careful with the things, the numbers that you plug in. We are not going to be... I just lost my train of thought. I hate when that happens. Okay. When we're using this, you can label your x1, your y1, x2, y2. Make sure that you pay attention to the signs in this formula. You do not need to memorize it. Okay, we'll have it on a test. You don't need to memorize it. You just need to know how to use it. Okay, so on number 1, it said find the distance between the 2 points on the graph. Let's call this point up high. We're going to call this point A. And then down here, we'll call this point B. But before I can find the distance from A to B, I need to find what about A and B? Not the slope yet. Can I plug in any x's or y's right now? Do we know what these points are? Okay, so the first thing I need to do is find these points, right? So, what is the point A? Where is that point at? What are the coordinates of point A? Figure that out. What are the coordinates of point A, someone? Okay, so we always say the x value first. So A is going to be at -5, 3. -5, 3. I have lines on my paper. Yeah, you do too. Okay. And then where is the B value? -2, -3. Good. Now, we're going to let the A value be our x1 and our y1, and the B value be our x2 and our y2. You don't have to label those, but for some of you it's going to be helpful. The thing that can mess you up is your negative sign, so be really careful when you're plugging this in. So we have the distance of AB, because that's what we're trying to find. So we're always making sure we're labeling things. The distance of AB, and then we're going to put our big square root, the whole big long thing. And remember it says x1 minus x2. So I have -5 minus -2. Be really careful there. It's already subtraction, so it's -5 minus a -2. Then it says plus 3, which is my x2, I'm sorry, my y1, minus -3. Right? 3 is y1. 3 is y1. Look down here. Look, 3 is your y1. -3 is your y2. Right, so 3 minus a -3. Yes, Elvis?
With the negative x2 and y2, are we allowed to look at that as an opposite and just turn it to plus?
I would prefer you to write it out like this first, and then once it's written out, then we know that minus a minus changes to plus plus, right? So negative 5 plus 2 is what? Negative 3. So then we'll have negative 3 squared. And then what's minus a minus over here? Plus plus, right? So 3 plus 3 is 6 squared. Those of you that did not draw your square root sign, please draw your square root sign on every step. Every single step. Okay, what does negative 3 squared mean? Does that mean negative 3 times 2? That means what? Negative 3 times negative 3, which is 9. 9 plus 36. What is 9 plus 36? Square root of 45. If I told you to go run the square root of 45 miles, you're just going to look at me like Lexi just did. First of all, I don't know if you looked at me because I said go run, or if you said square root of 45 miles. I'm not sure here. Okay, but the square root of 45 doesn't make sense when we're talking about the distance, so we can use our calculators to find what is the square root of 45. And you can use your cell phone for today. I also have calculators up there in the future. What is the square root of 45, anyone? 6.7. So my final answer is that the measure of AB is 6.7. Now, we do not need a line above AB when we're talking about the measurement of it. Because when we talk about the measurement, the symbol that means measure is just writing AB by itself without any line or anything with it. Okay? All right, take a minute and find the measure of AB in number 2. And I'm going to walk around and check. You can work with your neighbor, talk it over with your neighbor when you get your final answer. Those of you gentlemen that have pens, would you like pencils? For the future, I need you to use a pencil in my class. I will go ahead and sharpen 2 of them for you. So we should have negative 4 minus 3 squared plus 1 minus a negative 1 squared. And so if you have negative 4 minus 3, if you were in Mr. Edwards' class, that's keep, change, change, cha-cha-cha, right? Which just means negative 4 plus a negative 3 is negative 7. So you have negative 7 squared. Again, your square root sign should be each time. 1 minus a minus is really 1 plus 1, so that's going to be 2 squared. Please keep in mind, a negative squared is not a negative, right? Negative times a negative is a positive. So this is the square root of 49 plus 4. And 49 plus 4 is 53. So make sure you have your label, the square root of 53. What is that as a decimal? 7 point. I have 3. What is it? 7.28. So let's go ahead and round to 1 decimal place. So 7.28 would give us 7.3. So make sure you put AB equals 7.3. Any questions about that? Did you not get that? You okay? Oh, we're going to do one more problem. Okay, we're going to skip number 3 and we're going to talk about midpoint because number 3 is just like number 1 and number 2. The midpoint formula, so another formula that we're going to use is if I had a line, like if you look at the line in that example 1, okay, if I wanted to find out where the middle of this was, would you guys agree that would be an X and a Y point, right? Wherever the middle is going to be an X, Y point somewhere in there. So when I find the middle of something, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to look at the X's and take the average of that. Then we'll look at the Y's and we're going to take the average of that. So what that means for our formula is this. Put a big M. I'm going to scroll down now there with you. Put a big M for your midpoint formula. Oh!
Hello.
I know, it's probably not going to be the last time, too. Gotta figure out a better way to do this. Okay, so the midpoint formula is going to be a big M equals. Remember, we're finding an ordered pair, right? We're finding that X and Y. So it's going to be X1. Remember, the 1 is low. It's not an exponent. We're going to add the two of them together and then divide by 2. Then Y1 plus Y2 divided by 2. So we're going to take the X's, add them together, divide by 2. Take the Y's, add them together, divide by 2, and I should get a final answer that gives me X comma Y. Okay, so you have some space there. Again, it says find the midpoint of GH. So this is my X1, my Y1, X2, Y2. And now we're just going to plug them into the formula. So I have the midpoint of GH . 7 plus 9 divided by 2. Remember, we're creating an ordered pair. And then I have, for my Y values, I have -5 plus -1. So midpoint formula is addition. Distance formula is subtraction. Divided by 2. Anyone not see where these numbers came from? Questions on that? Was that a question? Yes. Okay, so if we look over here at the left, you see I have my X1 and my X2, so I added those together. You cool with that? And then same thing for the Y's. So what's your X1? See how it's 7? And then plus 9. That's where the 7 and the 9 came from. Okay? And then I also have my Y's, -5 plus -1. For my Y values.
That gives us our X and Y.
Yep. Okay, so I'll come with you in there in just a second, okay? Okay, so 7 plus 9 is what? 16. I have 16 divided by 2. And then, yep, -5 and -1 is -6 divided by 2. So 16 divided by 2 is, no, whoa. 16 divided by 2 is 8. And then -6 divided by 2 is -3. So the midpoint of GH is at the point 8, -3. So if I wanted to find the middle of those two, I would find them at 8, -3. Questions about that one? You see where that came from?
Yeah.
You're okay now. Okay, we're going to do one more example. Two more examples before it's time to close today. So flip your paper over. That top section where it says finding endpoints, you're going to put a big X through. So on the next page, that top point where it says finding missing endpoints, you're going to put an X through that. We're not going to do that section. We're going to do that section there at the bottom. Slowly but surely. Okay, more midpoint examples is where we're at. So now they're giving us a little algebra, folks. A little algebra. Can we remember that far back? Okay, it says P is the midpoint of XY. Do we have a line XY anywhere? Is there any diagram or anything? In geometry, when there is no picture, you will always draw a picture. All right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a picture. P is the midpoint of XY. So I'm going to draw X, Y. This is not a line. This is called a line segment, which is a piece of a line that can be measured. If P is the midpoint, where should P go? In the middle. Now, there's something in math that we use in geometry to represent that things are the same length. So do you see my dashes up there that I just made? What that means is from X to P is the same length as P to Y. That's what those little hash marks mean, okay? So anytime things are the same length, if it's in the middle, you cut it in half, right? If I break a Hershey bar in half, they're the same size pieces. Unless I'm doing it with the 2-year-old and they're not going to know that I have a bigger piece. All right. So this says xp is 8x minus 2. So we're going to write above xp, we're going to write 8x minus 2 over here on this side. Because that's how, from x to p, it tells me is 8x minus 2. And then p to y, come with me, is 12x minus 30. Now, how are we supposed to find x? Any ideas? Say that louder, Katie. We're going to equal them to each other, right? Because if they're the same length, then they have to be equal to each other. Even though they don't look with the 8x and the 12x necessarily that they're the same, we know that they are equal because they are representing pieces that are the same, which means congruent in math and geometry. We'll talk about that tomorrow. So you have 8x minus 2 equals 12x minus 30. Do we remember how to solve this? I hope so. Not factor. We don't have an x squared. We're going to put our x's on one side. So let's subtract 8x over. So I have negative 2 equals 4x minus 30. How do we get x by itself? Add 30 over to the other side, right? So then I get 28 equals 4x. Divide by 4. X is 7. Now, what if they had asked you, look, this is the last thing I'm going to say. What if they had asked you to find out how long like xp was? What would you do? Okay, Katie's saying, hey, if I know, look up here at my picture, guys. If I know that xp is 8x minus 2, and I know what x is, can't we just plug x in there? We can plug a 7 in and figure out how long xp is. We'll finish that part up tomorrow. Okay, so what you need to do today for your homework, you need to do homework 1. And look over, it says homework 2. You need to get started. You can do most of homework 2. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go on a break.